We're all Indigenous people from the North, and we're all considering, the history of our people and future of our people. So it's artists who are doing work about place, sometimes tough subjects of colonialism and other kinds of histories that have marked the land and our population.
12 artists from Alaska, Canada, Finland, Greenland, Norway, and Sweden are featured in Common Thread, Indigenous Perspectives from the Arctic. Their work highlights the connection to place, the natural world, and their communities.
Some is about abuse of Indigenous communities, some really tough subjects of, murdered, missing Indigenous peoples. Others is about kind of like the legacy and history of language retention. Literally, people having their grandmothers' mouths washed out with soap for speaking their language. Like Aslak Julinson's work in terms of mark making with the stitch, and the work is wholly contemporary and very unique, but it comes from this place of customary work of stitching and sewing and connection to land and to each other, and sharing all those kinds of techniques that have been passed from generation to generation. So those are some examples. Taquary Lake Partridge's piece behind me as well, of gathering and nurturing the land and taking care of it, but walking softly and harvesting. Those are the things that kind of ground us, and a lot of these artists are still connected to those places and stay.
There is several layers. One layer is this is a hybrid between animals and humans. All the textiles are human size and have a shape and a connection to animals. In a way, remind us that we all are animals, and this is very important for me and for the climate debate as well. And the other layers is the animal is a very important part of the Sami story tradition. 3 different themes in the Sami storytelling. One is the humans, and the second one is the god and the goddesses, and the third one is meeting with strangers. But this ecological aspect, I think it's important to remind us all. The way I work, it's time-consuming techniques, and that's also important when I try to catch this past and present, and be in this quite long time and the whole process. So the process is also important to catch this present and past.
My work in general is about place, and I live and work in Alaska, and the work in this exhibition is called Mark, and it's about this idea of borders and boundaries, and how Western culture has made marks upon Indigenous bodies across the world, including ours, and also on the landscape and the animals of which we live off and live with.
Common Thread was featured in Santa Fe, New Mexico, at the Institute of American Indian Arts Museum of Contemporary Native Arts, and at the same time also making its Santa Fe debut, the traveling exhibition Arctic Highways, Unbounded Indigenous People, which has overlapping themes with Common Thread. Arctic Highways share stories of those living on different continents, but who see themselves as kindred spirits. It also features 12 Indigenous artists, 10 are Sami, 2 from Canada, and 1 from Alaska.
I am Sami, and Sami lives in the land of Sapmi, and that land is Russian, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. And we have had reindeer herding at least for 3,000–4,000 years, probably more. On the Swedish side, 58 tribes. Our tribe at the Arctic Circle is called Vapsten. It means wasp. In Norway, it's almost the same, and also in the Russian side and Finnish side.
The artwork explores what it means to be unbounded, pointing to the impacts of restrictions of political borders, often drawn without regard for the people or their homelands.
We got affected by colonization around late 1600, confiscation of land And we also had this forced dislocation of Sami people, as I know you in US also have had. The starting point of this exhibition, Arctic Highway, was a vision of a Sami poet, Nils Valkeapää. He saw the similarity between indigenous people around the Arctic Circle. So he can see that it was a poetic way. He called it the Arctic Cultural Highway, so to say, the kinship that we have. But he died year 2000, so he couldn't realize this project. He was planning to make a film, but we took up his vision and we did it with the exhibition.
The artists are helping raise awareness of the impacts of colonization on Indigenous cultural ways of life, including opening up dialogue about the trauma caused by churches.
There are 35 villages that have credible claims against the Catholic Church in the history of the church being in our state. And we all know that that number is much larger. And so I wanted to kind of highlight that. And then I also wanted to include the names of the perpetrators, the priests and lay persons who have these claims lodged against them, and show how rampant it was over a 40-year period. And those are the only statistics that I have at this time. But we've all been impacted by it. All Indigenous communities, not just Indigenous communities, of not just the Catholic Church, all the denominations, and it's a direct result of colonialism and the impact of Western kind of ways on Indigenous peoples.
The art is also part of healing efforts, showing the resilience of Indigenous people.
I was raised in the Catholic Church, and there's a lot of trauma in my family and other families that I know, and it was not my direct trauma from the church, but indirectly I've been impacted by it. And generational trauma is real, so I felt like it was important. It's taken me like almost 20 years to be able to like actually name and say. So it's not something that's happened quickly. So, but I think art has an opportunity to open up a dialogue in a different way than like saying it directly, and then people can kind of digest it slowly.
How do you repatriate your culture, and how do you empower yourself? If you lose your voice, so to say, or your language, I can see that art, music, film, and theater fills this gap and can be a threat also, because it says we still exist, we demand our land back. So in that way, artist has become this voice.
One of the important jobs of art is to be able to demonstrate that we are resilient and that we are still here. And even though we wear different clothing and maybe don't have the same color skin and eyes, etc., we're still connected to the land and to each other. We're not going away, we're just getting stronger. So that's what it's about.